The story of the Gilgo Beach serial killer begins not with a body, but with a desperate 23-minute 911 call placed in the early hours of May 1, 2010. On the other end was Shannon Gilbert, a young woman working as an escort who had gone to meet a client in the gated community of Oak Beach, Long Island. Her voice was frantic, consumed by sheer terror as she pleaded for help, repeatedly screaming that someone was trying to kill her. She was heard yelling, "They're trying to kill me," before the call abruptly disconnected. This chilling cry for help would set in motion an investigation that would unravel a nightmare hidden in plain sight for over a decade, exposing a series of brutal murders that had gone unnoticed and unconnected by law enforcement, revealing a predator operating with shocking audacity along a popular stretch of coastline. The response to Shannon's disappearance was initially limited, met with the unfortunate skepticism that often greets missing persons reports involving sex workers. Her family, refusing to accept that she had simply vanished, launched their own relentless search, tirelessly combing the areas surrounding Oak Beach. Their efforts, however, yielded no trace of Shannon, and the case grew cold, becoming another tragic file in a drawer of unresolved missing persons cases. It was only 7 months later, in December of 2010, that the truth would violently surface, not through a breakthrough in Shannon's case, but through a grim accident of fate that would expose a horror far greater than anyone could have imagined. A Suffolk County police officer and his canine partner were conducting a training exercise in the dense overgrown brush along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach, searching for missing evidence in an unrelated case. What the dog discovered, however, was not evidence but a human skeleton, wrapped in burlap and left to decay in the isolation of the thicket. This grisly find immediately shifted the search into a major recovery operation, and within days the police had discovered 3 more sets of remains within a mere quarter-mile stretch. All the victims were young women, and all had been wrapped in the same distinctive burlap material, a haunting signature that pointed unmistakably to a single, methodical serial killer who had been using the desolate highway as his personal dumping ground. The 4 initial victims were soon identified as Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainard Barnes, and Amber Lynn Costello. They became known as the Gilgo Four, and their stories were tragically similar. All were women in their 20s who had been involved in escort services and had used Craigslist or other online platforms to arrange meetings with clients. Each had vanished after going to see a John, their families left with only unanswered questions and a growing dread. The discovery of their bodies confirmed their families' worst fears and exposed a terrifying pattern that should have been recognized years earlier, raising urgent and damning questions about the police response to the initial disappearances. As the investigation widened, the body count along Ocean Parkway grew, shattering the initial theory of a single killer responsible for 4 murders. The remains of other victims were discovered, including a male toddler, an Asian male dressed in women's clothing, and other unidentified individuals, suggesting that the area may have been a dumping ground for multiple killers, or that the so-called Long Island serial killer, LISK, had a much broader and more complex victim profile than first assumed. This complicated the investigation immensely, creating a tangled web of possibilities and forcing detectives to consider whether they were hunting one monster or several, each using the same remote location to dispose of their crimes. The year 2011 brought a tragic and bizarre twist to the case when the search for Shannon Gilbert finally yielded results. Her remains were discovered in a marshland not far from where the other bodies were found, but her case was officially ruled an accident, with authorities stating she had likely drowned after becoming disoriented and fleeing in a panic. This conclusion was fiercely contested by her family and many independent investigators who believed her death was directly linked to the serial killer and that the 911 call was a definitive record of her attempted murder. Whether a victim of LISK or a tragic casualty of the circumstances that led to his discovery, Shannon Gilbert remains the central tragic figure whose disappearance finally exposed the horrors of Gilgo Beach. One of the most chilling aspects of the case emerged from the actions of the killer himself in the aftermath of his crimes. In the days following Melissa Barthelomew's disappearance, her teenage sister received a series of taunting, cruel phone calls from a man using a blocked number. The caller coldly admitted to killing Melissa and derided her family's grief, even directing them to where her body might be found. These calls, which also targeted Melissa's mother, displayed a level of audacious cruelty and a desire to engage in psychological torture that is rare even among serial killers, suggesting a perpetrator who was not only organized and calculating, but also deeply narcissistic and deriving pleasure from the suffering of those left behind. The investigation into the Long Island serial killer has been plagued from the beginning by controversy, missteps, and allegations of incompetence and corruption within the Suffolk County Police Department. Critics argue that the victims were initially ignored because of their professions, that crucial evidence was overlooked, and that the crime scenes were not properly secured, potentially compromising the integrity of the entire case. The subsequent resignation of the county police chief in an unrelated scandal further clouded the investigation, leading to widespread speculation that the killer may have had inside knowledge or even connections to law enforcement that allowed him to operate with impunity for so long. For years the case grew cold, becoming one of the most famous unsolved serial killer investigations in the United States, a haunting open secret that cast a long shadow over Long Island. The identity of LISK became the subject of endless online speculation, amateur investigation, and numerous true crime documentaries, each proposing different theories and potential suspects, from a local doctor to a wealthy eccentric with property near the dump sites. Yet without a major break in the case, the killer remained a ghost, his identity protected by the very incompetence and indifference that may have allowed his reign of terror to continue unchecked for as long as it did. A significant breakthrough finally arrived in July 2023, over a decade after the discoveries on Ocean Parkway, when a massive arrest was made. Authorities charged Rex Heuermann, a married architect living in Massapequa Park, just miles from the dump sites, with the murders of Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, and Amber Lynn Costello. He was named the prime suspect in the murder of Maureen Brainard Barnes as well. The arrest was the result of a dedicated new task force that re-examined the evidence with modern technology, specifically focusing on DNA analysis and cell phone data that allegedly placed Heuermann in contact with the victims and at the scenes of their disappearances. The portrait of Rex Heuermann that emerged was that of a seemingly ordinary suburban family man who successfully hid a monstrous double life for years. He was described by neighbors as a large, quiet man with an interest in hunting, a detail that sent chills through those following the case. The investigation revealed a meticulous effort to avoid detection, including the alleged use of burner phones to contact his victims and taunt their families, and a deep knowledge of the isolated Gilgo Beach area, which he reportedly visited frequently. The arrest sent shockwaves through the community and the world, finally putting a name and a face to the phantom that had haunted Long Island for so long. While the arrest of Rex Heuermann represents the most significant development in the case, it has not answered all the questions surrounding the horrors of Gilgo Beach. Heuermann has only been charged in connection with 3, possibly 4 of the murders, leaving the fates of the other victims found along Ocean Parkway officially unresolved. Investigators are now faced with the complex task of determining whether Heuermann is responsible for all the bodies found in the area, or if the location was a dumping ground used by more than one killer, a possibility that continues to add layers of darkness to an already profoundly disturbing case. The story of the Gilgo Beach serial killer is a stark reminder of the vulnerabilities faced by women on the margins of society and the devastating consequences when their cries for help are not taken seriously. It is a case that exposes the deep flaws within law enforcement systems and the way bias can hinder justice, allowing a predator to operate for years while his victims were dismissed as high risk and therefore less worthy of urgent attention. The families of the victims were forced to become advocates and investigators, fighting for the attention that the police failed to provide, their relentless love for their daughters and sisters ultimately proving more powerful than institutional indifference. The legal proceedings against Rex Heuermann are ongoing, and the pursuit of justice for all the victims continues. The case remains open, active, and fraught with complexity as prosecutors work to build an incontrovertible case against him and investigators delve into the possibility of additional charges. Each court hearing is watched closely by a world that was captivated by the mystery for over a decade, eager to see justice finally served for Melissa, Megan, Amber, Maureen, and all the other lost souls of Gilgo Beach. The marshlands of Gilgo Beach now hold a permanent place in the annals of American crime, a beautiful landscape forever marred by unimaginable horror. The story is a testament to the enduring perseverance of victims' families, the evolving power of forensic technology, and the fact that some monsters do not hide in shadows but build lives in the suburbs, their ordinary facades masking unimaginable depravity. It is a chilling narrative that forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that evil often looks startlingly ordinary. The arrest, while providing a sense of closure for some, has also opened new wounds and new questions. Can the full truth of what happened along Ocean Parkway ever be known? Will all the victims receive justice? The story of the Long Island serial killer is not yet a closed file. It is an ongoing testament to the fact that some mysteries, no matter how deeply buried, can still be brought into the light. What are your thoughts on the Gilgo Beach case and the arrest of Rex Heuermann? Do you believe he acted alone, or were there others involved? Share your perspective in the comments below. The archives of the Penance Files are always open for discussion. And if you believe in the relentless pursuit of justice, no matter how long it takes, subscribe and tap the notification bell. Tomorrow we continue our exploration. Thank you for listening.